Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
I guess the biggest lesson learned for anyone is like, you're always going to have people questioning what you're doing. They don't matter. Ultimately, take advice from people that are in a position that you want to be in and use that as maybe some fuel, right? To fuel your success.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back to another amazing conversation episode of the Going Long podcast. For those of you also too that are here, you're listening once again, thanks for continuing to tag us on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Really appreciate that. It helps to bring more people to this amazing podcast, as you say, because we're still continue to be rated in the top 1.5% of podcasts globally. And also too, if you have ever wanted to check out any of the previous episodes, just go to firstgencp.com/podcasts and you can find every single thing that you need there. And it will be absolutely phenomenal. So with that being stated, today we want to find out if you want to live in one place, invest in another, you really like your job, you're a high-paid professional, and you just want to start getting away from Wall Street and building your own personal portfolio with teams that you understand, know, like, and trust. I really think you're going to get a lot out of today's conversation that we have with Zach Lemaster, who is the founder of Rent to Retirement. And we're going to get to that conversation just after this. So, you know what? If you want to know how adding turnkey properties can help you go from rent to retirement and accelerate your long distance investing success, then guess what? Today's a conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. Yes, because I did say to accelerate your long distance investing success, because today's guest, listen to this, not only is a licensed optometrist, which maybe he's going to tell us a little bit about that. Maybe he's not. Who knows? He also is captain in the U.S. Air Force, and he's experienced many different fronts in the real estate investing realm. And most importantly, today, the founder of Rent to Retirement, LLC, Mr. Zach Lemaster, is here to talk to us about how he can help you. So, Zach, I want to welcome you to the show, and welcome to the show, man.
Billy, thanks so much. What a great intro. I mean, I don't think anyone's done me better, so appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man. So maybe you'll come back already.
There you go.
No, we appreciate it, man. Appreciate you and your team being able to provide so much information. And I am really looking forward to this because even some of the things that we talked about in the very beginning, I know you're going to be able to add massive value to the Going Long family that's listening to us today. And the thing is, Zach, you know this because we talked about it. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. I'm going to ask you 2 in the beginning. I'm going to ask you 3 at the very end. I'm really excited to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you question number 1, which is help us understand, where is it that you call home in the U.S.?
I'm from Wyoming initially. Obviously, I traveled around in the Air Force, but we settled in northern Colorado, just north of Denver. Our business is nationwide, but we personally live in Colorado and love the Front Range.
All right, fantastic. Appreciate that. And then I really love positivity, man. So question number 2 is around the most positive thing that has happened to or for you in the last 24 hours. Can you share that with us?
Oh man, you didn't give me a timeline. I was going to say my kids because we got really young kids. We got a 6-month-old. So I'll stick with that. All right, my daughter that's 6 months in the last 24 hours, she just started a new smile while crawling, and it just warmed your heart. That's the whole why. That's the whole why behind everything. So
all right, there you go. Hey, listen, everybody. So this is like a little plug in the very beginning. If you're not watching the video version, jump over to the video channels. Probably YouTube is the place that you're going to be watching this, but you should see Zach in the smile as soon as he starts talking about it. It's his 6-month-old. The smile just goes ear to ear. Like, it's amazing. So go check it out. Go check out the video version. You can see Zach and his smile. So here's the thing, Zach, just really quickly before I tell you about me being a recovering perfectionist, which is what everyone knows about me already from the Going Long family. I just want to take a second to thank you for your service. Greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you
for your service to the country. So with that stated, also, everybody knows I'm a recovering perfectionist, at least the Going Long family. And that means that sometimes I try to do things that are a little bit almost impossible. Like I tried to tell your entire backstory, like really reducing it and shrinking it down in like a 1.5 seconds. Like that was never going to happen, right? I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I still try. So what I'm going to ask you for your help, actually, Zach, if you can share your backstory in your own words And you can take as much time as you want because you're our special guest today. And then also too, I am going to ask for one little extra bit. If you can talk to us about some of the different decisions that you made to get to this point in your journey, and then we'll see where you and I take the conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll try to keep this somewhat consolidated. Going back, I'll start about 15 years ago. So my wife and I, as you mentioned, Billy, are optometrists by education. So, I mean, we met in Oregon and Portland, went to school. I was very passionate about helping people see, and because I had terrible vision as a child. And so, we went to school. I read a book, Once Upon a Time, a little purple Bible, what we like to call Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Once Upon a Time. So many people have read that, but that kind of opened up my eyes to think about money and investing. Once we graduated from school, I immediately went into the Air Force as a captain because I was on scholarship. And that's where we started investing in real estate. My first house I used a VA loan, which I was fortunate enough to use no money down, bought a duplex, rented out half, lived in the other half. That opened up my eyes to investing in real estate. I was in the Air Force for active duty 5 years. And I invested every single year. That was that first year. It just kind of clicked with me. The next year we bought 2 more properties. The year after that, we bought 3 properties, and we just kind of went down this path of really enjoying real estate because it's a tangible asset. The math was simple. I'm a simple guy. I just like, hey, we get, have a tenant that's paying the mortgage and providing income for us. Well, we eventually got to the point where we started to invest out of state, specifically because that's where we saw the opportunity, Billy, there's just better returns, not just in our own backyard. I was stationed in North Dakota, not the crazy exciting investment market, but we learned how to invest out of state, specifically focusing on areas that fit our goals, that were maybe had better returns, better cash flow, better appreciation. And that really led us to, expedite our investment success, where my wife and I were able to retire from our career paths in optometry and move full-time into real estate. That's not because we disliked our active income. It's just, we were more successful and we're able to do more. So we still practice optometry on a volunteer basis. Well, that caught a lot of people's attention about what we were doing through real estate. We had a lot of colleagues and friends and family that reached out and said, hey, can you assist us in investing and doing the same thing that you're doing? We don't have the time, the knowledge. We don't want to, learn all this from the ground up. We just want to invest in real estate and do what you've done. And so that was a birthplace of Rent to Retirement, where we assist people in buying assets in some of the best locations throughout the country, where we handle everything following the same process we did. We either renovate or build properties, lease and manage them for investors in some of the best locations in the US, so they can somewhat be a passive investor and spend time with family, focus on their career path, whatever. Fast forward to today, after we bought that first property about 15 years ago, and we work across 12 different markets in the US. We did over 1,000 properties last year, and the business has just been growing. So I guess that's about as consolidated as I can give you.
So consolidation sounds great. I mean, you were able to kind of pack everything over the last 15 years and did that in, I don't know, a couple minute and a half or something like that. That's pretty good. I've got lots to learn from you, man. So, Zach, here's the thing. Earlier, I'm always just really intrigued by how people get into certain areas and start to find a focus. Now, you mentioned that you were in the Air Force. You had a VA loan, 0% down, blah, blah. I don't know how you grew up, or if you were influenced by other people that talked to you about real estate and stuff like that, but help us understand, what was it about real estate that caught your attention and made you say, all right, I'm going to focus more attention here. I want to be able to invest in here. You're already starting in a successful practice, you and your wife, in optometry, and you chose real estate versus, I don't know, something else. Why was that?
Yeah. And that kind of goes to another question I forgot to answer about things I learned along the way or different choices I made. And that was probably the biggest one, Billy, is changing a career path. I had spent 8 years going to professional school, and I completely switched gears, right, into something else. And that wasn't an immediate decision, by the way. I slowly reduced my practice hours as I got more busy, and eventually just had to move into a volunteer setting. But I didn't have a background. I mean, I grew up, I guess blue collar, middle class. My parents were electricians. My mom was the only practicing electrician in Wyoming at one point. So it's obviously a male dominated career. But anyways, I mean, the person that got me interested in real estate was my father-in-law. My wife, she's Chinese Vietnamese. She's second generation. She's from Canada, but her parents are first generation, fled Vietnam during the war. It's a long story, but I mean, it's very inspiring because they were caught multiple times, brought back to Vietnam. They eventually made their way to Canada. Shirt on the back, didn't speak English type of thing. And my father-in-law, very entrepreneurial, came into this new country to start life later in life, and had my wife 2 years later after he lived there. But he had multiple jobs, businesses. There was like the whole family, the extended family living in one house. But he eventually got at some point into real estate, and he was able to create a pretty nice lifestyle starting later, being first generation Chinese, Vietnamese, and was able to create like a retirement picture on his own through real estate. So he was always like, hey, real estate's the way to go. For me, it solidified in our mind when we had that first house hack. We lived in half, rented out that other half, and it was just like, it was tangible. I'd invested in stocks, it was like, I like stuff where I was like, hey, I was receiving cash flow today that I could actually use and reinvest or live off of. Yeah. And it was just very simple. And it's like, hey, this is a reproducible product. And so at this point in time, we've built a very successful business and investment portfolio. We were retired in our 30s from our career path, but it didn't happen overnight, but we just basically found real estate would work for us. And we just did it consistently again and again and again. And we lost money and they had obstacles along the way, but we really believed in real estate. We found like, hey, if there's the right recipe, which in my mind is investing in the right locations with the right teams and just consistently doing that again, like you're pretty much guaranteed a path to success. There's more millionaires made in real estate than any other asset class. And it's the most proven path of success for wealthy people because, you're investing in a human necessity, housing. So I go on and on, but that's kind of the reason why.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's, so it sounds like there was some influence, not necessarily directly, but you saw the path that was marked from your father-in-law, which I think is fantastic. Because then that gave you some proximity, okay, of what is actually reality or what is possible. I also find it very interesting that that you and your wife are both optometrists and your parents were both electricians. So that's kind of an interesting. It's an interesting.
They always said, "Do not marry the same profession." Right? I remember the dinner conversations, right? Like it's like no one wants to talk about work at dinner time, but yeah.
There you go. So I appreciate you breaking that down for us because that helps to kind of helps to bring things into perspective. So you also had, right? We have a lot of people that are here, that are listening, that are watching today, that are high paid professionals, and so these are conversations very similar to the types that I was having. But maybe you could dive into a little bit more about the stories that you were telling, because you and your wife, you were having some successes. You also talked about that there were some things that were happening that weren't so successful, but you were sharing these experiences with others, and they started coming to you. Talk to us about how did that make you feel initially when you had people saying, "Hey, listen, I don't want to do this. I'd rather you just do this for me." But tell me a little bit more about what you're experiencing in this new real estate arena.
I think I'd like to back up a little bit further as well and just say like starting to invest. And I think a lot of people that go down this path can probably relate to this. There's always someone, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, whatever, that are like the naysayers. When you start something new, when you take a risk, start a business, start investing, like we started to invest in real estate. Some people are like, well, I used to own a rental property. It was a terrible experience, blah, blah, blah. And then we started to invest out of state, which was which actually set us up for massive success, is actually broadening our investment horizon to nationwide. We're not just focused on our local market because that's what we felt comfortable with. And then there's a lot of people that said, well, that will never work. You can't invest, you need to be local. You need to be hands-on and see the property. And obviously these are people that had not been successful, right? So I kind of had to tune them out and start taking advice and surrounding myself by people that like they were successful. They were in the position. And this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned is taking advice from people that are in a position that I want to be in. This is whether it's relationships, health, finances. Let me take advice from someone who's been there and done it versus the 1,000 naysayers along the way. So there was this transition though, where there a lot of people were like, that's not going to work, or they're waiting for me to fail or whatever. And I did. Like there's a lot of properties that had problems, right? But we didn't let that stop our investing, and I let that fuel me to be successful. But then there was this change. They're like, oh, wait a minute. These guys retired from their career path, and all my colleagues that we graduated with had still had like hundreds of thousands of dollars student loan debt. They weren't necessarily happy, and they weren't like, it's a great career path, but they weren't able to do the time spend their time with their family that we were. And so then it kind of switched. The naysayers became, oh, like, can you show us how to do that? And what we found was, we were operating in the turnkey space well before we even labeled the business a turnkey business, but we were always passionate about helping people, whether it's helping people helping people accomplish their financial and investing goals. That's the driver, what keeps us in this business. And that's truly what's rewarding at this point. But we kind of learned over time, like, hey, there's a lot of people out there beyond just our immediate network that need assistance. They want to invest. They want to own real estate. They don't want to be a property manager. They want someone to kind of teach them how to build a business, a passive business investing in real estate. You need to have the right legal structure. And so that's, when that transitioned to more and more people approaching us about that, that's like, hey, this is actually a need for, this is a niche environment that we can help a lot of people just following the same path that we've already done. And so that was exciting for us. And that's when we made that transition into the business.
And so as you transition into the business, it makes me think about the naysayers. I posted on this not too long ago on LinkedIn, because it's typically the person that the naysayer is the one who is really projecting their own fears or doubts or previous experience on you. It's not that they want, because I just saw it when I saw this video, I was like, I'm going to share it across LinkedIn, because it's one of those things. It's not that they really want to be naysayers. They're just trying to, in their way, protect you, but they don't know how to really try to protect you. So they just project their own feelings onto you. And in a very similar way, I've also found, Zach, that those that are the naysayers, but also interested in projecting, they're the ones who usually can also be your biggest fans or your biggest supporters once they kind of really ask all the questions that they need to ask and figure out what it is that they didn't necessarily do right or they didn't pay attention to. And then they also start to see the results. It's one of those things that you start to see the light bulb go off in their head, and you get to be a part of that, right? I don't know if you mentioned that. I just want to see if that's also a very similar experience for you.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. And I would say that's certainly true with certain people. I mean, I think there's some people that are just negative.
We get rid of them.
Right.
They're just gone.
But certainly, the people there is some truth in that, because some of the people, like even family, right, that were very skeptical, I would say. Well, I use that as fuel to be successful. And eventually they came around and said, like they were the ones that were most interested and engaged. So that's a really interesting thing to think about. And I guess the biggest lesson learned for anyone is like, hey, you're always going to have people questioning what you're doing. They don't matter ultimately. Take advice from people that are in a position that you want to be in, and use that as maybe some fuel, right, to fuel your success.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other things you mentioned was, you're in 12 different markets, right? I'm a guy who's lives over here in Europe and kind of was able to leave corporate life because of things that I was doing and investing back in the States in different places, like thousands of kilometers or thousands of miles away. You're doing that actively in 12 different markets. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you do to actually explore a specific location. People talk about markets. I like to say location. And then what are some of the different areas that you look at as you begin to build your teams, and that you're also doing that, trust and verify, or trust but verify, to make sure that the teams fit with the culture that you want to create for your clients?
Yeah, sure. And we like to kind of dispute the term of trust but verify, and we just verify. A lot of these things we just we build new partnerships. Yeah,
fair enough.
I had to say it, but in these areas, so what our business does is essentially, Billy, and this is following our own investing success in our own path and our processes and systems that we've developed over the past 10 to 15 years, is basically we identify a market that we want to invest in. We have a whole list of criteria, but generally we want to be in areas that are going to be sustainable long-term. We want to be in areas that have landlord-friendly legislation, low taxes, future population and economic growth. I mean, these are all things that allow you to have a successful rental portfolio as an owner long-term. Areas that have diversity of industries. We look at price points, so relative to home price or relative to rents, they got a cash flow, right? So once we enter into a market, we build our team in these areas, and this consists of everyone. We've got to have lenders that can lend in that area, insurance providers. Yep. We have to have property managers, of course. That's the most essential thing. And so we interview multiple. We work with multiple, and then we choose one that we're at least going to partner with long term. And really, that comes from actually track record. We can do all the due diligence up front on people, and we have the checklist and the applications. But at the end of the day, just actually working with someone and verifying. Like that's truly how you know at the end of the day. You don't want to, marry someone right away. You date before you marry, but ultimately do business with them. So we enter into an area and we either renovate houses, and this is for ourselves and our clients, right? We renovate the house or we build it. About 70% of what we do, majority of what we do is ground up construction. This is single family and multifamily, small multifamily.
Mhm.
And then we lease and manage those, long for our investors long term. We do have some short term rentals as well, but we assist them in everything. We assist the client in everything they need to do to easily invest in an area based on their goals and criteria. So we help people build out an investment portfolio and plan, and then execute that by identifying the right locations and properties to fit their goals, and then just buying the property, having the right financing in place, making sure they have the right, do they need an LLC structure? But we have a very strict criteria. It's almost like a recipe. It's a playbook. We just follow. I mean, every individual is going to have different goals, criteria, timeline, resources. But we know in real estate what is successful, and so we take that and apply it and try to match it with the client's goals. I don't know if I went off on too many tangents there, but
no, not at all. At least I'm tracking you. So So that's helpful. And I guess based on the things that you are talking about, how you select the location, and you did talk about that, how you verify and verify with the team members. I'm also thinking now, I'm listening to you. I'm that high paid professional. I'm listening. I'm in the car, or maybe I'm on the treadmill or something like that. And I hear all of this. I'm an accredited investor. I live in wherever. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, how do I actually know if this could be an option for me? Because I like the things that Zach, that you're talking about in the beginning, that you're actually getting cash that you can use today. You're getting some benefits for the future. And actually, it sounds like you're going to handhold me through this process. But how do I know if this is actually for me, or where have you seen the biggest amount of success for your clients?
Yeah, well, and this goes to anyone looking to see if this is a good path for them to start investing in real estate or to scale. Like have a consultation with our team, right? Let us help you map out your goals and see. Just ask questions. The most important thing my team, I train them on, is to add value to every single person that you talk to. Even if you don't invest with us and you just need a lender resource, a property manager resource, you have market questions, if you need a national insurance provider, we have all those resources, a real estate attorney, CPA, if you need lending information, because we have lending options where you can get a 3% seller finance loan from builders, or you can do a true investment property 5% down. These are all things let us share those resources with you. But the best thing to do is just have the conversation. But where we found the most people that like the turnkey model, or it fits what they're looking for. And just to be clear, so we're not a fund. We're not raising money from people. We're helping people buy their own properties, build your own portfolio, because I feel that that's where you get the best benefit, right? You have 100% control and ownership over the property. You get all the tax benefits. Bill, we got to do another show on taxes, because that's my biggest thing about real estate. No other asset class comes close. We have a successful business, and we buy enough real estate every single year to completely offset our taxable income. Every single year. That gives us more money to reinvest, to buy more tax efficient real estate, to increase our income. But anyways, not to get off that tangent. So having a conversation with people to explore their goals is really the best way. But what we found is high paid professionals. So obviously people that have money. You don't need to be an accredited investor. You probably need, if you're buying a property, you got to put a down payment down. Maybe that's 20 or 30K. You got to qualify for financing. If you're using financing, we'll help you through that process. But usually if you're a brand new investor, you need some hand holding, we obviously cater to that type of investor. If you're an experienced investor and you just want to diversify and scale your portfolio, or if you're someone that just wants to be more passive because you're a busy professional, you want to focus on your family and your career path. And if you live in an expensive market and can't tap into your local real estate, those are all the people that find turnkey investing successful.
Fantastic. And so just two things on that. So the first is, as you for this to the Going Long family, really, as you listen to Zach talk to you about some of the different structures and ideas, just to be clear, he's sharing examples. He's not giving anybody any type of tax advice, any of that kind of stuff. He's just simply sharing an example so that you can then take that example and talk to whoever your professionals are. That's the first thing. The second thing is, Zach, I also know, and I didn't do this in the beginning, sorry about that, but you also have a podcast, and I'm sure you talk about some of these different things. So talk to us a little bit about the podcast, kind of where your focus is, and then we'll get into the Going Long Final Three.
Sure. Yeah. So if anyone wants to find out more about us, they can visit our website, renttoretirement.com. That's toretirement.com. That has links to all our social media, to our YouTube channel, to our podcast. We love talking about all things real estate and exploring new creative ways to be successful in any market cycle. A lot of people are like, well, what do I do with high interest rates? Well, there's a lot of creative options right now. There's a lot of ways to still be successful. The successful people consistently invest in real estate, but that's the best way to go. You can also text. You can text invest to 55444. That's invest to 55444, and that will get you information. If you're listening to this on the road, at least send you a link to subscribe to our information. We're putting out a lot of content, just as your mission, Billy, is to help people be successful. We share the same vision.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And then here's the thing, like, Zach, I never ask anybody to go along final three, and because today you're my special guest, our special guest, I just want to make sure. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, there we go. So I think I said this to you before, but I have no doubt. Like, I think you were born ready. So here we go. This is about a guy from the Midwest of Ohio. Well, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio. And so I've called Europe home the last 22 plus years, over 2 decades at this point, which seems amazing. So I always want to know, like, what is your favorite European city that you either visited already, Zach, or is still on your bucket list to visit?
Man, and you did prep me for this, and it's still like there's a ton of places. I'm probably going to throw out a few because this is a big thing for my wife. She loves to travel. We travel. My son, who's 2, has been to like 10 different countries already. We've been to over 65 countries total. Nice. I was stationed in Europe. I was stationed in Germany. Okay. For a few years, but Prague is one of the most beautiful places we've been. Mm-hmm. We like Istanbul. It's a cool culture, yep. And man, I mean, we'll just leave it at those 2, but there's so many places. Yeah.
I have 2 phenomenal stories about both of these, which I will tell you afterwards. But Prague, I spent I think it was January 2006, an entire month there. And I really, really like that city. It's just be there in the summertime. It's in the wintertime, unless you really like the cold weather. It's really, really cold. And Istanbul is phenomenal, both of them. So we'll take Prague because that was the first one. And then we'll include that in the show notes, and everybody that's watching and listening and can find out more about the vibes of these 2 amazing cities. So on to question number 2. And you've shared a little bit earlier today, like, not everything happens perfectly. And I really want to share the idea of what I've seen from really successful people, and that it happens to every single person, right? Not everything happens according to plan. There are always going to be mistakes, or you have learning opportunities, or you have seminars, or however you want to call them. Things didn't go according to plan. The most successful people realize that, okay, that happened. So I'm not going to continue to dwell on that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the lessons, and I'm going to say, okay, what different strategies, tactics, and actions can I put in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again? So I don't want you to think about the mistake, the learning opportunity. What was the lesson that you extracted from that someone needs to hear today that's part of the Going Long family?
There's 2 things I want to mention, and they're for people at different places in their career path or investing path. The first one is a lot of people get with this, what we always hear about, the analysis paralysis, right? And just overeducation without action. I'm a firm believer that true education comes from doing. And like you said, making those mistakes. So if you're a person that's been sitting on the sidelines, I would encourage you, like, just get started, like, understand, like, my opinion, the biggest risk, we talk about risk, people think they're risk adverse. The biggest risk is doing nothing and being complacent and not continuing learning. The second thing I would say, Billy, the biggest lesson I learned is, and we learned this the hard way, is multiple times, is we have multiple scars from this, but like, when you're partnering with someone, truly partnering with someone, just date before you marry. Just take it a little bit slow. We've had some bad partnerships where we've jumped in too quick. This goes with contractors, business partners, people we were raising capital from that just couldn't, had emotional issues. So just make sure you are partnering with the right people and take a little bit of time before you fully jump into bed with them.
Appreciate that. So for both publics, right? So for both people that are out there, the analysis paralysis, get started, and then also to make sure you're taking your time as you partner, and take your time before you get married. So that makes a lot of sense. And that takes us to question number 3. It's about filling our mind. You already talked about some of the books and being able to have that book knowledge, but I just want to come back to you, ask you the question: what is one book that you would recommend, to the Going Long family before we get out of here?
Probably everyone's heard of the Kiyosaki, Repsara. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. After that, And then if you're real estate specific, Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller.
All right. So you get to pick which one of those three would you want to pick?
Throw Gary Keller out because probably everyone's heard of Kiyosaki. So Gary Keller, Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
There you go. Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Gary Keller. I think he knows one or two things about real estate from what I've heard.
Yeah.
No. So you know what? I mean, I cannot believe these. I mean, these things just go by so fast, these conversations. I mean, and you're on the other side. So you know what it's like. It's just like we get these conversations starting before you know it. I'm thinking back to the very beginning of our conversation, and you're talking about, you and your wife both being optometrists, and you going down this path, and you really wanted to make an impact, and you wanted to be able to help individuals with sight. And you also, at the same time, were captain in the U.S. Air Force. You had this opportunity where, as you were traveling, you had the opportunity because you saw from proximity the power of real estate, as you talked about your father-in-law being able to kind of show you the art of the possible. And then you decided, hey, listen, not only am I serving my country, I have an opportunity that's 0% down. I can also take part in investing. And you saw that happened once, and it happened twice, and it happened multiple times. And as you started to see that this was creating not only new options for you and for your family, your friends and family, some of them naysayers, but they started recognizing that you were able to, by choice, walk away from something you'd spent over 8 years investing your time in terms of education. And you were beginning to create an even more fulfilling life for you, for your family. And as people started to ask more and more, you realized, okay, well, listen, this is a great way to be able to not only create, and I'm adding here, generational wealth for ourselves and security for ourselves, options for ourselves. Also, we can help to teach other people to be able to do the same thing. You now have a podcast and really helping others in terms of being able to go from rent to retirement. You even build a company around that same name. So, and everybody's thinking, yeah, Billy, just shut up and ask him the question, for goodness sake. So I'm going to ask you the question, Zach. Help us understand, what's the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about you and also the things that you and your team have going on at Rent to Retirement LLC?
Great. I direct them back to the website, renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com. They can text INVEST to 55444. And our job is to get you whatever information you're looking for. If you're interested to learn about the markets we're in and invest with us, great. If you just need some information about investing, let us help you on your journey.
All right. Fantastic. Well, listen, Zach, I just want to say on behalf of the entire Going Long family, thank you very much for deciding to invest your time with us today. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy.
Yeah, sure. Give me like 15 seconds, man. I'll wrap things up and I'll get you out of here.
Cool.
Going Long family, listen, Zach made it super understandable. He told you about the things that he experienced. He even told you about how he was able to focus and double down and be able to, by option, walk away from a role that he had invested a lot of time in. He shared some very practical tips with you. He's given you his website. Take the time today to share this episode with friends, with family, talk about the concepts. Heck, even reach out to Zach and his team. He's giving you his website. So while you're taking action, which is the most important part, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.